The national president of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement (CRM) political party, Professor Maurice Kamto, says the Cameroon government lacks political will to solve the Anglophone crisis. He was speaking in Washington. You have details in this newscast. And several parts of the two Anglophone regions of the Republic of Cameroon hit by socio-political and security tensions for close to 3 years today remained shut down, and of course the streets were deserted as some young people braved the arts to celebrate the National Youth Day in some urban centers. And of course in the rest of the country, we'll be bringing to you details of the celebration of the 54th National Youth Day across the country today. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us in this edition of the news on Équinoxe Television. I am Bable Jonathan. We're broadcasting from Cameroon's economic capital, Douala, being right away in the town of Kumba in the Meme Division, southwest region of the Republic of Cameroon, where the lockdown imposed by pro-independence fighters seriously affected the celebration of the 54th National Youth Day in the town of Kumba in the Meme Division, southwest region of the country. The streets remained deserted and very few persons could brave the odds to attend the celebration of the National Youth Day in the central town of Kumba, and the few persons came from the different subdivisions, Kumba 1, 2, and 3, to converge in the central town to celebrate the 11th of February National Youth Day. And we caught up with the senior divisional officer of the Meme Division, Tundong Chamberlain, and this is what he told us. The senior divisional officer of the Meme Division was to our correspondent in Kumba shortly after the brief celebration of the National Youth Day in the town of Kumba in the Meme Division, southwest region of the country. And of course the streets remain deserted as a result of the lockdown imposed by pro-independence fighters within the context of the Anglophone crisis that has been deepening. And of course we'll be having the images of the town of Kumba that remained deserted today as some young people and some officials braved the security challenges to move on to the central town of Kumba for the celebration of the National Youth Day. Now we have the extract of the senior divisional officer of the Meme Division, Tundong Chamberlain. We'll be coming back to that in a short while. Time for us to take a look at the celebration of the 54th National Youth Day in the chief town of the southwest region, that is in the town of Boya. And of course the turnout was not massive, but it recorded a significant improvement compared to last year. The turnout of young people and officials to celebrate the 54th edition of the National Youth Day at Bongo Square in the town of Boya. And of course the turnout, as indicated by our correspondent Derek Jaton, was timid, but recorded an improvement compared to last year. And higher institutions of learning, including the University of Boya and other vocational training centers in the town of Boya, some schools, secondary schools also took part in the National Youth Day celebration at Bongo Square under the watchful eyes of Southwest Governor Benau Kalia Bilai and other top officials of the region who were present at Bongo Square today for the celebration of the National Youth Day in the town of Boya. Now we going back to the town of Kumba in the Meme division, where we have the senior divisional officer Tundong Chamberlain and one of the senators in that part of the country who spoke to our reporter. Take a listen.
The youth of Meme will be fully concerned into the decentralization process. Our mayors, city mayors, are going to be in charge of the strict implementation of those high instructions coming from the head of states. To drop their files, to work close at hand with the municipal authorities, administrative authorities, to navigate, to be sure that themselves are also concerned in this share of the national debt. Let me first of all also seize this opportunity to sincerely congratulate all the stakeholders who work hardly in order to have this wonderful celebration we are enjoying today. Easily notice that there is a very big change. Down to what you are doing, down to the population of Meme, who are, I know, very mature and committed to bring peace within the world. Forward this message to them that the father of the nation gave the last opportunity to them to come from the bushes and join the whole nation, and join the whole division, and join the whole population of this country.
We saw how young how youth came out to celebrate. We must imagine the size of Kumba and the distance that people had to cover to come here on foot. So I very much appreciate the efforts put in by the youth to give this celebration pump it deserves. It's very hopeful for the town because it's a new beginning. We know very well that we performed very well, and that is why people are becoming enthusiastic about youth and participation in development. Now there must be a way forward. The way forward is we are looking forward to the final declaration of results, the putting in place of the councils, the election of the mayors, and we know very well that many of the youths were candidates of their municipal councillors and their parliamentarians. Then after the declaration of the result, when they have to assume their responsibilities, we hope that it will be a new way forward for the town, since it's a change of party.
The senior divisional officer of the Meme division, Tundong Chamberlain, and Senator Mo for speaking there to our reporters in the town of Kumba after the brief and scanty celebration of the National Youth Day. And of course, I was talking about the celebration in the town of Boya, the regional capital of the Southwest region. There, the celebration recorded a significant improvement compared to last year, but the turnout, as indicated by reporter or correspondent Derek Jato, was still timid at Bongo Square. And of course, the governor of the Southwest region, Benau Kaliabilai, spoke to him. Take a listen.
They came out today to march to show that they are there, they are ready to assume their responsibility of youth, they are preparing themselves to take over the decision of this nation. So my reaction is a reaction of satisfaction and joy.
As a part of the region,
I want to congratulate those youth, and I want to plead with them that they should pull the other youth who are still in the bushes, those who are misled. They should come out to join them so that they continue the fight for the construction of our beloved country.
Still in the Southwest region, all mission schools in the Limbe boycotted the 11th of February National Youth Day celebration. The turnout was, however, significant in the town of Limbe. We'll be coming back to that in greater details with our correspondent Davidson Maimo. In Bamenda, northwest region of the Republic of Cameroon, another part of the country hit by a crisis for close to 3 years today, there was a celebration of the National Youth Day at the Commercial Avenue ceremonial ground, though the turnout was not as usual. there were some higher institutions of learning, the University of Bamenda and other higher institutions, and some secondary schools, and of course primary schools that were present at the commercial venue ceremonial ground today for the celebration of the National Youth Day in the town of Bamenda. Here in the littoral region, 10 schools were prevented from taking part in the March Pass or the National Youth Day Parade in the Douala 4 subdivision because they failed to pay a registration fee of 15,000 francs CFA. Many of the schools, over 30, including some government primary schools, were present. The students were present at the ceremonial ground, but they were barred from taking part in activities marking the 54th National Youth Day on grounds that they did not pay. However, some of the schools that did not take part told us that they effectively paid, but they were still not given the opportunity to take part in the National Youth Day Parade. Take a listen to some of the school officials in this extract.
They have stopped more than 30 schools not to take part in the 11th February occasion. Adara, the CEO of Douala 4, in his youthful age, paid 11th February before marching. This is where our country is going to. This is what we call embezzlement and corruption. Just look at it. Look at what is happening within the children. Look at children. They have not practiced their civic right, of which yesterday they were calling Cameroonians to practice their civic right by voting. And today they are disturbing young Cameroonians not to practice their civic right by marching. It is a shame.
Even schools that have a march who have registered, they are not able to march, they are not eligible for marching, so we are very disgruntled. Even the children are very disgruntled. They have prepared themselves and they have prepared their minds to come and march as to display their civic right as Cameroonians. But today we are surprised that we are the marching ground and we have been refused to demonstrate our rights as citizens of Cameroon, as youths. We have paid. There are schools that have paid, but the numbers were not given on time, and even the receipts were not given on time.
However, the officials who presided at the National Youth Day celebration in the Douala 4 subdivision indicated to us that the parade took place hitch-free. According to them, it was a successful and satisfactory celebration of the National Youth Day with the higher institutions of learning like the St. Louis University Institute and secondary schools and, of course, primary schools that took part in the celebration in the Douala 4 subdivision. And the senior divisional officer of the Douala 4 subdivision and some officials and students spoke to Robert Mukube. Take a listen.
My impression is satisfaction, a lot of satisfaction. You know, this celebration comes after the elections. Then I will be very, very grateful for those who have, made everything that this celebration should pass without an incident.
Our youth, they were very happy. They do their march past well. Everything passed without any incident. But I would like them to really listen to the head of state speech, because what he said is quite important for them. So they have to work harder to become the leaders of tomorrow. Our country will belong to them tomorrow. So they have to say no to violence in school, no to phone, no to aggression, no to knife, razor blade, and so on in our school. It's not good for them. It's not good for them. They are the future of tomorrow. We want to leave Cameroon to them, to the responsible youth, not to the who are violent, who doesn't respect their teachers, who kiss their teachers. We say no.
My name is Faichen Benedict, a student of UJET. As a youth, I expect the government to recruit more youths into the government, because so they have a lot of advantage and energy to do some of those things that our fathers cannot do due to lack of energy. So nowadays I'm seeing youth as being capable and being able to do whatsoever it takes for them to do to grow up Cameroon, because Cameroon is a country that is blessed with a lot of resources and it needs a lot of energy that only youths have that energy.
And some of the young people who took part in the National Youth Day celebration at the Beseke Valley Ceremonial Ground in Douala expressed anger over some of the things that the head of state said in his address to young people yesterday, notably concerning unemployment, the rising rate of employment among young people in Cameroon. Others, however, said they were satisfied with what the head of state said. Immaculate Fogwe has more.
Several youths in the economic capital Douala converged at the Biseke ceremonial ground in the Douala 1 subdivision to commemorate the 54th edition of the National Youth Day. These youths from different school establishments who marched past the grandstand expressed some of their thoughts concerning the head of state message addressed to the youths. The head of state's message was very encouraging. Youths have to study very hard so as to secure their future. His message concerning the consumption of illegal drugs was really pertinent. Illegal drugs are dangerous for our health. In Yaoundé, a teacher was stabbed by a student. I think the fight against the consumption of these drugs have to start from the base, which is classrooms. Students are very vulnerable. Some of these students equally gave their opinions on how to limit the consumption of these illegal drugs. The authorities should punish those behind the sale of these hard drugs. The government should sensitize the population on the dangers behind the consumption of these drugs. Antoine, a degree holder in mechanical engineering, has been in search for a job for the past 19 years. He says the difficult economy caused him to rely on photography for a living. Things are not moving as they ought to. Administrators are fighting for their own stomachs. We have a lot of youths today who are degree holders but are unable to get employed. This year's Youth Day celebration had as theme Youth, Peace, Decentralization and Participation in Local Governance for a New Cameroon.
And in Yaoundé, there was a massive turnout of young people from higher institutions of learning, secondary and primary schools, associations, political parties that took part or who took part in the National Day celebration, the National Youth Day celebration at the May 20 Avenue. And the ceremony, of course, was presided at by the Youth Affairs Minister Mununa Fotso, who spoke to colleagues in Yaoundé. Listen to him.
I think this Youth Onzen that was launched on the 1st February at Mindom in the South Region was full of activities, of creativity of young people, of opportunities, and I think through youth villages, youth connect activities, all the Cameroonian young people express themselves in diverse activities. So today we have witnessed that parade. But before that, yesterday, you know, we had that great message of the head of state, and you were very attentive to it, and we have seen the testimony during that parade, that dynamism of young people, that determination, that shows that Cameroonian youth is very engaged and ready to take their responsibility to build that just and prosperous Cameroon called by the head of state.
I told you earlier that in the town of Limbe in the southwest region of Cameroon, all mission schools boycotted or were simply absent during the celebration of the Youth Day in that town. However, the turnout was significant. Davidson Maimo reports.
In a serene but tight security atmosphere, with men armed to their teeth, The 54th National Youth Day celebration in Limbe, headquarters of FACO Division, took place hitch-free despite calls from separatists for a total boycott of the event. Under the watchful eyes of FACO Chief Executive Officer Ngamba Emmanuel Odo, celebration started at 10:22 a.m. after a rebroadcast of the head of state message to the youth. Though the absence of all mission schools from the nursery, primary and secondary, with renowned names such as Seka Baptist College, St. Anne and Presbyterian Girls Secondary School was very conspicuous, the Sonora School and Government Bilingual High School Limbe stole the show with massive presence of the students and teachers. Some schools, be them lay private or government schools in both the primary and secondary, were shadow of themselves with only the presence of teachers who marched past the grandstand.
Government primary school, Le Champion.
However, two state professional institutions, Government Teachers Training College and the State Registered Nursing, took part with a timid turnout. In the political scene, only the youth wing of the ruling CPDM party showcased its strength in terms of numbers, as a total boycott of the opposition youth wing was very visible. Speaking to an elderly person on the president's message to the youth, he pleaded with the youth to respect the elderly, for they too will be old one day.
I'm hoping that the youth will listen and share the message and also put that advice into practice.
The FACO president of the National Youth Council appreciated all those who braved the odds to answer present.
Taking dangerous materials to school should stop, and parents should do their best to encourage youth, to caution youth on what to take to school.
The National Youth Day celebrations at the Manga Williams Avenue saw the youth and the entire population rushing back home with no celebrations in town, as in previous editions.
A timid turnout in the town of Limbe, but however a little more significant compared to places like Kumba and other parts of Anglophone Cameroon where the celebration did not take place at all. And in the head of state's message to young people yesterday, the head of state indicated that government is working and will continue working to solve the problem of rising unemployment among young people in the country. He also called on the young people who are carrying arms in the bushes in the northwest and southwest regions of the country to leave the bushes and return to the normal life trend. However, despite all the efforts of government, all the speeches made this far by the head of state and other government officials, the national chairman of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement political party, CRM, Professor Maurice Kamto, says that government lacks political will to solve the 3-year-long Anglophone crisis. He was speaking in Washington. Details with Fomi Armstrong Sander.
As we welcome to the microphone, the one and only
Maurice Kamto, Cameroon Renaissance Movement political party national chairman in Washington, D.C. in the United States of America.
I'm here today, first of all, to extend to you my heartfelt gratitude for what we have been able to achieve, not only during the electoral campaign for the 2018 presidential election, but during our detention. I don't feel free at all because we still have many of our compatriots detained in prisons in Cameroon for their political opinions, including Ayub Tabe Sisiku and his colleagues.
Conscious of the context and audience, Maurice Kamto began by stating his position vis-a-vis the independence struggle in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon.
Everybody knows my opinion about separatism, but they are my brothers and sisters, they are my compatriots. My commitment is to the whole Cameroon. I want to maintain, to keep all parts of Cameroon together.
Maurice Kamto says the government of Cameroon does not have the political will to resolve the Anglophone crisis and cares less for the killings and sufferings in the Anglophone regions.
A genuine dialogue is priceless to to settle the matter. I am in favor of federalism, and the number of the state will be decided by the dialogue. Inclusive dialogue.
Reiterating why his Cameroon Renaissance Movement political party chose to boycott the February the 9 municipal and legislative elections in Cameroon, Maurice Kamto says the elections indirectly legitimize the separation of the Anglophone regions. On the future of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement's political party after the boycott of the twin elections, Maurice Kamto said the party's objectives is not to get seats and positions within the current government in Cameroon, but a vision for a new Cameroon, void of the possibilities of a new 50-year dictatorship at the helm of Cameroon.
And the president, Paul Biya, thinks that the way out of the Anglophone crisis is for separatist fighters to drop their guns and come out of the bushes, so that hostilities, so that violence and killings, destruction of properties can come to an end in the two Anglophone regions of the country. And this is why he reiterated the call on pro-independence fighters to return to the normal life trend in his message to young people. That was yesterday. Details with Innocent Aze.
President Paul Biya, in his address to the youth in line with celebration of the National Youth Day in its 54th edition, did not exclude those in the crisis-hit Northwest and the Southwest regions, notably those who have picked up arms against the state under the wayward influence of separatist leaders.
Those who have allowed themselves to be lured into armed gangs and who continue to maintain a climate of insecurity in these two regions should lay down their weapons, like many who have already done so and who are living peacefully in our communities. Once again, I urge them to come out of the bush and rejoin their other fellow young citizens who are leading normal lives in our society.
The head of state also expressed condolences to family of the 26-year-old mathematics teacher killed recently in Yaoundé by one of his students, stressing such a regrettable and incredible act never repeats itself anywhere in Cameroon.
This incredible act speaks volumes about the excesses of our modern societies. I call on parents, the clergy, and teachers to prevent, through their teachings, such acts from happening again. I also urge you to reflect on what has happened, to ponder its gravity, and to resolve to never again commit such acts.
Knowing fully well this is one of the consequences of consumption of illicit hard drugs and the liquor in the school milieu, President Paul Biya pledged never to relent efforts in eradicating these practices in schools.
During a Council of Ministers meeting, I requested the government to consider designing a national drug and alcohol abuse control plan. Such abuse had reached an alarming level among the Cameroonian youth. Once more, I am calling on the government today to redouble its efforts to combat this scourge.
To the President of the Republic, Cameroonian youths must pursue their fundamental rights to education, to be responsible and productive compatriots who will develop Cameroon's democracy and speed up the nation's emergence.
My dear young compatriots, for the good of our country, I need you. Happy Youth Day. Long live Cameroon youth and long live Cameroon.
And while the results of yesterday's municipal election in Cameroon are being proclaimed by the competent authorities in the different subdivisions across the country, violence and protests have erupted in some of the council areas where some political parties are claiming a victory in the municipal elections in the town of Marwa, notably in the Marwa 2 subdivision in the far north region of Cameroon. A vehicle belonging to the outgoing mayor of that municipality, Abdoulaye Yerima Bakari, was vandalized last night by some young people who suspected that the mayor was taking out some documents out of the council at an ungodly hour after he discovered that he was a loser in the elections. Details in this report by Smanjik Angebre. Smanjik Angebre with that report in Marwa, where the vehicle of the outgoing mayor was destroyed last night by some young people who suspected the mayor of some illegal maneuvers at an ungodly hour in the council premises. We'll be having that report in our subsequent news editions coming up next. Talking Point. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us in Talking Points. We are receiving historian and civil society leader, Gilbert Ngimdo. First of all, Gilbert, we'll start with issues concerning the elections. What's your take on the unfolding of the elections, especially in Anglophone Cameroon?
Well, thank you very much. Good evening, televiewers. My take in the first place is that of a complete disappointment at the level of turnout. Keeping security problems aside, voter apathy mounted so much, even in areas where there seemed to be some security assurance. In the center of Bamenda, where you find life, in the center of Boya, where you find life sometimes, turnout was still very, very timid, and the reason behind may be at the level of the legitimacy and what those who are supposed to be voted in are to give to the people. I equally feel that elections in English Cameroons were very timid because during the campaigns, the 2 weeks declared for campaigns to be carried out there, the campaigns themselves were virtually absent. The candidates themselves were not there. The candidates themselves sat somewhere. They were mostly in Francophone towns, but expected to be voted back home. So their absence contributed enormously. Some of them, voters' apathy, and people sometimes question who they are going to vote, did not even have campaign messages, did not have what their leaders are going to provide to them. The promises which are usually sold out during political campaigns prior to elections were completely absent in those areas. And I think the people questioned what they are going to vote, and that explained why turnout was so timid.
And even in French-speaking parts of the country, there was equally some sort of voter apathy manifestation in several parts of the country, in the far north, even in the center, here in the littoral, and even in the south. There were polling stations where just a little above 100 persons voted out of the over 400 expected.
You're right. I think I lived that example because in the polling station where I personally voted, I was present when such statistics were demonstrated. We were there. We participated in the counting of the votes. At the end, we realized that those who actually came to vote were insignificant. In fact, they were less than the number that came out to vote. Actually, where I voted was less than 20%. In the polling station of more than 600, of more than 600 duly registered voters, less than 100. That was around 92. came out and actually cast their votes, and out of the 92 votes actually cast, about some 20 empty envelopes. The message behind is very clear. Firstly, when you look at the general insecurity that is rocking the country now, people are very disgruntled with the methods used by the government to address the problems the people are facing. Not only Anglophones, the problems in the north. When you talk of the extreme north, the whole grand north, it's in terrible problems, minus the Islamic sect Boko Haram terrorizing and killing our people there, the terrible economic conditions there, the terrible social conditions there. When you get to schools in the north there, you question if these people are actually Cameroonians. During the campaigns, through social media, I saw one of Cameroon's ministers who was shading himself under some thatch, and the comment there was that he was in a school in his area.
The Minister of Communication, the former Minister of Communication, who is now Minister of Employment and Vocational Training, Chiruma Bakari.
Well, exactly, like you said. But I asked myself, what did he actually go there to do? What kind of message did he go to tell the people to vote him, so that the next 5 years or so he comes back in that same way? Because I'm sure he was there 5 years back or 7 years back, because we last voted in 2013. 7 years back, that is the same message he went there and told the people. He has gone back there in that same situation. I wonder what he is going there to tell the people.
No, the boycott, is it just about the voter apathy that has been experienced in Cameroon for quite a number of years today, linked to the disappointment that people are expressing with regards to the way public affairs are being managed, with regards to the present regime, with regards to the economic situation of the country, or it's also about the call for boycott by the party of Professor Maurice Kamto, CRM, and of course other political parties that did not take part or that have not been taking part in elections, like the CPP, the PAP, who have said there is no need for election in Cameroon today.
Thank you very much. You know, there is a newspaper, a magazine, Jeune Afrique, that I read. It's some months back, concerning the 2018 presidential elections in Cameroon. It was titled Rien ne bouge, mais tout a changé. When I read deeper, I realized that Cameroonians are getting more and more awakened by the politics of their country. Many people are getting awakened. There is that political renaissance, and it is getting so many people out of their hidden political shaves. Now, but rien ne bouge means that the system remains. Those who were there remain. You know, a match winner will always want to remain a match winner, and will deploy all efforts to remain a match winner. And a match changer will need a lot of tactics to be able to outsmart the winner and take its place. That is the same thing in the political scene in Cameroon now. Coming to what I describe as match changer, these political parties who are quickly implanting themselves, getting themselves into the minds of the grassroots population, who unfortunately cannot actually outsmart the match winners, meaning the party close to power, because of the system, the electoral law, and so many other inconveniences. These people tend to convince the populace, the masses, about in fact, they discourage them so massively and make them feel that elections do not have any impact in the lives of the citizens. On the contrary, we have not yet got to any political civilized state where people will be able to judge by their own.
There are more serious problems.
They accept.
There are more serious problems that should be the priority now. The crisis in the northwest and southwest, and in particular, which should be solved before any other thing, according to these politicians who think that the elections are not necessary in Cameroon today.
I want to differ. Let me differ a little bit from there. Differ in that here in the French-speaking zone, the crisis in the English-speaking zone are just one of the issues at hand, discouraging people. Discouraging very well, because most of Anglophones who are either IDPs in French Cameroon, in the Francophone speaking Cameroon, and those who duly resident there are discouraged with government lack of will to resolve the problems back home. That
as
is just
indicated by Professor Maurice Kamto.
And I said I want to differ a little bit from there and position myself more on the influence that parties like the CRM that officially declared its non-participation in the elections, parties like the CPP that is even using an association Stand Up for Cameroon, and which is gaining a lot of grounds. And you believe me, whether we like it or not, whether the government, the system likes it or not, these parties are gaining so much grounds that with time, if the procedure is not modified to actually catch the attention of so many more Cameroonians, it is going to be a boomerang. It's going to be more disastrous than it is now. Besides that, there were several calls for election postponement. It looks like from national calls, international calls, the head of state's attention was called to the fact that elections are not very proper for Cameroon now, when the country is facing a lot of socio-political crisis, economic crisis are rocking the country. It is good that convenient solutions be brought to table to actually settle these problems before we begin to move towards elections. That also contributed to slow people down, and people turn to question what is the essence of voting when major issues are not addressed by the head of state. I think so.
And the head of state was speaking to young people yesterday, calling on those in the bushes in the northwest and southwest to drop their guns, come out, and indicating that government created 500,000 jobs last year, and that government is still doing more to solve the problem of rising youth unemployment.
Yeah, thank you. You see, the head of state the President of the Republic has severally called on the independentist fighters to drop their weapons. But the issue at hand is, he said that when he was taken out of office in November 2018, he said that again during an outing he made, a special outing he made to call on the dialogue that held in Yaoundé. He made that again during his end of year speech, and severally he has even tweeted and made a lot of calls. But the issue is this.
The young people are still in the bushes.
What is the weight of the calls? The calls have to be they have to transcend, they have to encapsulate, they have to materialize, you have to transfer the calls into concrete action so that the youths or those fighters see the reason for abandoning arms and coming out. Several calls. If he decides to call on those fighters every day from now, unless something is concretized, unless some action is put down. Besides, I wonder the kind of security the head of state has put in place to guarantee, because we have also seen cases where people lay down their arms, show themselves, and the next day we hear them dead. The next day we hear them late. The next day we see them running. Why would they run again when they have opted to drop arms? Why would they be killed if they opted to?
However, he indicated
the calls need to be materialized with some action, some encouraging action that can actually let the people know that, one, when they drop their arms, they'll be secured. Secondly, when they drop their arms, what took them to the bush will be given an adequate answer. You cannot tell them to come back without telling them, this is what I have done for why you are.
However, the head of state said many have dropped their guns, they have come out of the bushes, and they are now living normally within the societies. And we know that some have been presented to us as being lodged in DDR, disarmament, demobilization and reintegration centers in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, undergoing the reintegration process. Now, the Youth Day celebration, 11th of February, plebiscite day, today celebrated as Youth Day. As a historian, there seems to be something wrong with this celebration of the 11th of February, which is plebiscite day, as Youth Day in Cameroon. Your mentor, Professor Zingwa, indicated this in a write-up, indicating in which he said that it was an attempt to thwart history. Is it?
Well, I wouldn't differ from him, but I will suggest also that when you look at where and when the celebration actually started to where we are now. It was in the first place called Empire Day that was celebrated solely in southern Cameroons, and then later on in West Cameroons. Then from Empire Day now, it now moved to something as National Day. And you know, in the first place, 26 October was the mandate, not even the 11th of February. It was Empire Day was celebrated on the 26th of October. 26th of October dates back to 1954, when after Southern Cameroonians became so frustrated and broke away from the eastern region of Nigeria, where they were